Foreign trade balance rises to a surplus of $1.1 billion in fourth quarter of last year as export value surpassed import bill for the first time since third quarter of 2019, representing 8 consecutive quarters of negative trade balance. This is according to data on foreign trade obtained from the CBN. According to the CBN, this is the first surplus after 8 quarters of recurring deficit. However, the aggregate trade balance for the year 2021 still lies in the negative region at $6.49 billion, although better than the $21.37 billion negative balance recorded in the preceding year. What do these terms implies, talking about the import bill? So we said import bill is the total amount of import made by a country. This includes both fiscal imports of goods and imports of services. And now the foreign trade balance is the difference between the value of export and that of import between two countries. So it may relate to a product or to the total of the exchanges of products, goods, and services. So let's get talking now, shall we? Mr. Olusegun Okwande is a chartered accountant. He joins us via the telephone now. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you for your time.
Thank you very much, Frank, and good morning to our viewers. My pleasure to be here this morning.
Yeah, good morning once again. So, after 8 quarters of recurring deficit, Nigeria's foreign trade balance finally recorded a surplus of $1.1 billion in the fourth quarter of last year. That's about 115% from the $7.5 billion deficit recorded in the preceding year on year. So how do you react to this? Going by this report, how do you react to this exciting news?
Yeah, well, Frank, I have mixed feelings about this, and it's just the reality. We understand that the reason behind the boost of the surplus we are experiencing from our export earnings has to do with the increase in the price of our major export goods, which we all know is crude oil. As we speak, we know that crude oil amounts or account for over 75% of our total export. And as we speak, because of the crisis that are faced in the global market, we've discovered that the cost of crude oil as we speak is over $100 per barrel, which is actually a boost to our economy. But why am I not too optimistic? Whatever surplus we are enjoying now is just the tip of the iceberg, considering the fact that we have the raw materials, but we lack the processing ability because our refineries are not actually functioning. So the problem we are faced with is whatever surplus we enjoy there, because of the deficit that we have for not having our refinery functioning, there is nothing to really write home about. You can see the problem that we are faced with currently with the problem of petroleum locally. Even when the crude oil that is giving us so much energy to end the surplus is actually there. So it's actually a mixed feeling because there are opportunities that are built to us. Even from the crisis that we are experiencing globally in Russia, in Ukraine, if we had our product being processed here locally, we would have had more markets, considering the fact that people that are actually buying from them that might have a change of heart to say, let's patronize even other countries who are processing this product. But because we don't have the processing facility, whatever surplus we are that we may be celebrating will definitely be eroded with the import of some of these products, because what has actually given that surplus is nothing but the boost that we got from the increase in the global cost of crude oil, which accounts for 75 to 80% of our total exports.
But with this report, can we say it is time to celebrate? And if we put this side by side with the last quarter, GDP of last quarter, which went up, even though it declined from what we had in the previous quarter, from about 4.03 to 3.9%. Of course, it's still a positive report. If you put that side by side with this, positive trade balance, I would say we are finally out of the woods. The country's economy is finally out of the woods. Is that what it is?
Frank, it's not like that. You have to hold it stuff holistically. It's not much of what we have on paper, but the reality on ground. Do you know the cost of things as we speak? What impact is this surplus on an average Nigerian? We need to take it holistically. The truth of the matter is that we are getting more surplus because of the revenue we are getting from crude oil. But how much of it does it translate to an average Nigerian upon whom we calculate the GDP? How much of it has it transformed in, has it impacted in our infrastructural development? How much of it has it impacted in our educational sector? You and I understand that most of our students in the country are trapped in a crane because of our failed system in the educational sector. So if we put it side by side, there's nothing here to celebrate about, because we keep having a dwindling stuff. This surplus will come. If it goes down tomorrow, those days, we actually have that pushing effect of which an average Nigerian can benefit from. And that's why we have asked the question, when there are surplus that we're supposed to be celebrated, but because we lack the basic infrastructure that the economic growth and development should ride on, we nosedive into it as a tinkle of anything that happens, even from the global market. In some time, I think some of the surplus should have been used to diversify into other areas. How much of it do we have? The answer is none. So it's not something to celebrate about, because we are enjoying the boom now, but we are going to pay out for it. You know that the cost of petrol, PMX, ex-depot as we speak, has risen from 145 to about 180. At 145, it was actually being subsidized. But as we speak, more subsidies are actually being paid. So it's not something from my part that we should celebrate about. And I know that an average Nigeria, this has not impacted them. And that's why we feel that the government should be intentional in fixing certain things that will be of more beneficiary than other work that we have in the growth that is not impacting on the citizens.
Okay, so let's look at this now. You have said it's not time to celebrate, but let's look at this one. A further breakdown of some of the data we have here show that the export earnings dropped marginally by 3.5% from $13.42 billion, talking about the export earnings, to 12.95 billion in fourth quarter. So while import bill reduced by 13.8% from $13.74 billion in the month under review. So what difference will this have on the reserve? How do we talk about boosting the country's earnings than export this time? I mean, a country's export earnings than imports this time.
Yeah, it will have significant effect on the reserve of the nation, considering the fact that we have, from the report, have a decline in the things that we are exporting. We are supposed to be doing about 2.2 barrels on daily basis, but as we speak, we are pegged about 1.4 to 1.5. If we have maximized the quota given to us by OPEC, would have been another way to boost even some of the earning that's actually dropping. So that's an area that the government needs to be intentional about. And if you look at the area of import, what other things can we diversify into? What other things
just a moment.
Comparative advantage?
Just, Mr. Lucheson, just a moment, Okwande. Yeah. Just a moment, just to correct a bit of a mix-up there. Of course, we do know that OPEC's allocation, quota allocation to Nigeria currently stand at 1.6. So it therefore means that we cannot even produce above that quota. But even at the moment, we're not being able, the country has not been able to meet that quota allocation for Nigeria. So if you put that, all of that together again, I mean, so with this surplus we're having, do you think it's going to make any difference, even if we have to meet that quota?
Yeah, if we are able to make the quota, okay, I think the mix of the capacity of what we can produce is 2.2 and the quota is 1.6. So you can imagine if we maximize some of the potentials of what we are able to deliver, if we meet the 1.6, the excess of the capacity of production can be domesticated by processing that. So you end earning with the 1.6 that is given to you by OPEC, and the differential of about 400,000 barrels that you're producing every day can be domesticated. This is what people. So at that point in time, if you have your refinery working, you can push it to your refinery, not at the global cost, but at the cost that is embedded to say that this is my own property. Imagine you having an eatery and you are selling a plate of food to an outsider for 10,000. I'm sure you know they're not going to pay the same rate. So the excess that we are going to have from the OPEC can be domesticated in such a way that when it's refined, an average citizen can get the cost of petrol at a cheaper rate. So the fact still remains that the government must be intentional in maximizing the output that will get from even the crude oil production that will count as a major revenue drive or revenue source in such a way for us to earn more in terms of export. And you can imagine if we are able to even process the excess that we have on the OPEC locally, this we can even transmit or send to countries, neighboring countries, which will definitely add more income to us as a nation. But because we are not that, you discover that even the little that we are celebrating is not where we are supposed to be. There is more, and that even if the major thing that we are concentrating on is just the crude oil.
You were going to talk about divestment or diversification. So I was going to ask you, what other products can we look at? Because if you look at the terms of the term use of foreign trade, we're looking at the difference between export of goods and import between two countries. But so what other areas, what other products or services or goods can we engage in, can we build on to sustain this positive the report we're getting from CBN?
Okay, well, when you talk about diversification, I think the major area everybody is going towards is towards the service.
Hello, Mr. Olusegun.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, go ahead. I almost lost you there. Yes.
The other area you need to diversify into is the area of information technology. COVID has come and has exposed a lot of things. If you look at the first five areas of concentration where revenue is being driven now, you discover is in the area of fintech, is in the area of information technology. Before now, you used to have the likes of Shell, Mobil, and the big loads in the oil sector, making the first five. But these days, the tech organization has taken, the likes of Facebook, Amazon, likes of Kuri, all those people have actually, even in the Nigerian sector, you can see that even fintech are given stiff competition to the traditional banking. Gone are those days when you and I had to visit the bank and make the queue. So I think other area where the government needs to invest more is building infrastructure to enhance our information technology. This is an area where people are making money. You know of not so long of guys that put things together, floater wing. Their system was not just up to 5 years, and they're able to drive it. Also, in the banking sector, you heard about the acquisition of Union Bank by Titan Bank, who came out less than 4 years. What is the driving force behind Titan that took over a bank of 104? It is technology. They are a fintech bank who provides some of these services. So the other area where the government can diversify into is infotech. Create the enabling environment, the structure, the infrastructure for this infotech, information technology to ride on smoothly. And you discover that an average person who goes into that business will contribute more, pay more tax, operates, in an environment that is more conducive. For infotech, even this issue of insecurity hardly affects them because the way and manner they have their space is very different from the physical good that is destroyed. So it's a key area the government must look into, provide infrastructure to ride on, and you see this complementing major crude oil export, and that will boost our earnings.
Now, the last quarter of 2021, talking about the GDP growth, it's put at 3.9%. And then, of course, we have seen some other indicators like a foreign trade balance, you know, at a surplus of $1.1 billion. So these are some of the indicators we are seeing positively, which is good for the country, of course. But sustaining this growth trajectory is a problem. So what do you see going forward in the new year? Of course, we are almost at the, you know, last few weeks for the first quarter to go.
Yeah, well, the sustaining this to me is a bit difficult, if I must be candid, considering that the productive arm of the economy is dwindling because of the failure of infrastructure to ride on. So even if we are having more earnings because of the global imbalance, as we are concerned, government has not done anything to deserve this earning, because it's just the global market that is actually determining what we are enjoying now. But how much of intentional act is the government having to make sure that we have some of this thing translate into a bedrock for a business to survive and move? And that's why we're saying that some of the surplus that we are having and enjoying now, let it be used in making infrastructure available for people to succeed. If you understand the plight that every person is going through with the scarcity of fuel, it will interest you that it creates more havoc for a business owner, considering the fact that you are practically on the road, there is no fuel. You need to power your generator set even with fuel. So consider some of those things. If there are basic infrastructure like electricity, it's going to enhance the productivity of an average citizen, and on the long run contribute to the bottom line through taxation even to the government. So we want a situation where government will be intentional to make sure that some of the surplus we are enjoying it now. You might be shocked that in the next quarter or in the next few weeks there might be challenges here and there, that the cost of this crude oil that we are enjoying now we just nosedive. How much of will we have prepared ourselves to take or absorb the shock? It's still the same common man that will absorb it. So it's just the advice is for government to put the necessary infrastructure in place. Nigerians are creative and we are ready to put in our best. But if the infrastructure and the enabling environment is not there, it becomes an issue for the growth of any company or any organization or even the nation at large.
So let me let you go now, but I need you to do this in 30 seconds. Nigeria, you know, has a trade relations of estimated to about $2 billion with Russia as we speak now, and that's because Nigeria is an importer, a consumer of wheat from Russia. So with the current crisis now going on, the oil price has gone up because of that crisis now to almost 10% or 20% since the crisis started, to $110 per barrel at the moment. Is it going to affect anything in terms of exchange of goods and services?
A lot will be impacted on Frank, and I think we should brace up for more hardship. I'm not sounding pessimistic. An import-based economy will never grow if the major area where you are getting those things. And if you look at it, there is no alternative. So this crisis, because we have a lot to do with Russia on their part, is going to affect us. Remember that NNPC came out and said that there might be, a distortion in the flow of the supply of PMX, because some of those products come from Ukraine, from Russia in particular. So it's going to affect us negatively. We should just brace up. But it's a lesson for us that we should try as much as possible to go the route of putting the right thing in place for us to domesticate some of the things we have, so that we can be a channel even to more nations, even when we